able to see this. Okay. So the FACTS Transit Corps, this is about transportation being the #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions. If we can get more citizens riding the bus or the train, walking, bicycling, that would really help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And there's all kinds of tactics that we need to work on. This is one I'm particularly excited about, and I forget which month we're going to be talking more about this, but I hope you'll come back for that. And this campaign would address sustainable land use, active transportation, public transportation, and reducing vehicle miles traveled. But in Northern Virginia, a lot of us have to drive. And so one of the important things would be electrifying cars. So this campaign's about electric vehicles and also electric bicycles, which are becoming more and more popular. And that also ties back to the last campaign of making sure it's safe for cyclists. And this campaign, can you bring up the CCAP, is about increasing electric vehicle adoption. Okay. So, and the final campaign we're going to talk about, and this is the focus of today, is our Tree of Life campaign. This is one I care a lot about because I really love nature and all the critters that we share this beautiful planet with. And so this one, think of the grounds of your faith community and native plants and community gardens and getting rid of invasive species and composting and making the soil richer. And then also lawn. We have so much lawn in the suburbs. And, if we could reduce the lawn and also maybe take better care of it with less pesticides. So there's so much for us to talk about here, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that today. And then the CCAP strategies are supporting, preserving, restoring, expanding natural systems and green spaces and soil quality, and then responsibly managing the waste generated. And that gets back to the composting. Okay, so now we're going to take a pause, and I'm going to ask you all to introduce yourself. If you could let us know your name in chat and where you live, where your home is, and then the name of your faith community, if you have one, and then where your faith community is located. And the reason the location is important, I go to Good Shepherd Lutheran Church, and there are 10 Good Shepherd Lutheran churches in the DC region. So that's why we need to know which town or city or your faith community is in. So if you could just take a minute and type that up in the chat, that would be great. All right, and are we doing the poll next? Is that right? Renee and Christine. There we go. Okay, so this is our poll, and you can pick multiple campaigns. And basically, we just wanted to know what you're most interested in. And again, you can pick a couple, 3, you could pick all 5 campaigns if you're interested in all of them. I'll give you a minute to answer that. All right. I'm going to close the poll in 10 minutes. 10 minutes, 10 seconds. Last chance to answer the poll. All righty. So let's look at the results. So it looks like, well, this is a big surprise that people who came today are really interested in the Tree of Life campaign. That's great. But lots of interest in other ones. And cool. quite a bit of interest in Creation Care Kitchen, so be sure to come back next month for those. Okay, I think we can go to the next. Did I share the results? Those are the results. Okay, so we're doing these meetings monthly. We're doing them at different times. So every other month at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, like this one. So the next one on Tuesday at 5 p.m. will be in May, but in April, we're going to be doing it at 10 a.m. on Wednesday. And that one will be on Creation Care Kitchens. In May, we'll talk about the Transit Corps. In June, we'll talk about clean cars. And then in July, we will have gone through all 5 of the campaigns, and we're just going to do a check-in about where we're at and the kind of progress we've been making. And in the end, I want to just say, as much as kind of these are very far reaching, but in the end, it's like, what solution did we get on the ground, or do we have, in the planning stages to really reduce greenhouse gas emissions and also help us adapt to climate change and help our fellow creatures adapt to what's going on in the world. Okay. Next, and this is our ways that you can get in touch with us. You can learn more at our website. I really encourage you, if you're not one of our subscribers, I think, well, you've all signed up, so you're going to be on our email list and you'll get our newsletters and different events that we're going to do. And then I really encourage you to use info@faithforclimate.org. We pretty much keep an eye on that every day, and that's where you can get in touch with us with questions or thoughts or ideas. And by the way, if you don't hear back from us, we're a little nonprofit, so sometimes we get a lot of email. Just ping us again, and we'll get back to you. And then also, of course, we live in the social media age, so if you could share this information on your social media accounts, that would be great. All right, so again, today we're going to do a deeper dive on Tree of Life, and I'm now going to pass it over. We have a brand new climate solutions organizer, Christine Montanese, and she is going to be in charge of this particular campaign. So I'm really excited to introduce her. Christine.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christine Montanese, and I go to Holy Transfiguration. It's a Melkite Catholic church over in McLean, Virginia. It's nice to see everybody, and I get the really great job of showcasing some faith communities that have done incredible work on their grounds. So we can head to the first slide. This is Temple Rodef Shalom, and it is also called TRS. This is the largest synagogue in the state of Virginia. They're doing incredible things. They have a green team and they have a sustainability initiative. The green team is divided into 5 groups. They have an energy use group, endowments group, land care, life cycle events, and waste reduction. So today we're going to talk about their land care group. They have developed 3 phases. First phase was the removal of invasives. They had a company come in and remove the invasives on their property. They then planted a native garden and are slowly replacing their old plants with native plants. Second and third phases haven't been completed, but they include removing invasives at an adjacent park and inviting the local community, so not just members of the faith, but those in the neighborhood surrounding their building to come and remove invasives as well. And I believe we may have some people joining us today who are from TRS, who during the discussion section, we would love to have you talk more about the incredible things that you're doing there to share with others and give us all some ideas. So we'll go to the next slide. This is St. Peter's in the Woods Episcopal Church, also doing amazing things. It started in October 2019 when their reverend called to all interested in forming a creation care ministry. They've got a lot of great key accomplishments. Some of them include installing a native plants garden in the front of their church. They replaced disposable items with dishes and drinkware. They began composting food scraps at church events. They installed bluebird boxes. I believe they now have 4 boxes. And they also established a giving garden, and you can take a look, it's in the pictures here, and they are donating the food that they grow to pantries, to food pantries. And I think we also have people here who are from St. Peter. So again, we would love to talk with you during the discussion session at the end of the presentation. This is their native garden. This is the before. And then if you go to the after, this is what is in the front of their faith group. It's just really a beautiful job. So this is Rising Hope Mission Church. And Rising Hope Mission Church is a United Methodist congregation, and they help individuals rise above homelessness and poverty along the Route 1 corridor. Their grounds are very small, but that didn't let them stop their work. They are doing an innovative project in partnership with Arcadia Center for Sustainable Food and Agriculture. And we have a video of Sandy, who is their operations director. She's going to tell you about what they're doing.
So Sandy, can you tell me about this greenhouse and what you're doing here?
Yeah, so this is, we're partnering with Arcadia, and the idea is just to kind of get people comfortable and familiar with growing food through food insecurity. So not only can we help the community with maybe growing peppers, tomatoes, and just getting the idea of growing them on their porches and learning how to grow, but we'll also be able to grow some for our kitchen where we feed the homeless. We feed about 20 a day through our kitchen here. But it's really a great way to connect with the community and growing plants and helping others.
Awesome, thank you. So Sandy.
Okay, and we'll go to Bethel Lutheran Church. Bethel Lutheran Church is in the northern Shenandoah Valley, so a little ways out, but they planted a tree for Earth Day on a sunny spring Sunday last year. And they had they blessed the tree with a prayer led by their pastor, Dave Young, and they marked it with a stone. You can see it in that picture, and it says Earth Day 2022. And so we have this in here to give an example of what a faith community can do with limited resources. It just is one small action that can make a difference. And we'll go to St. Mark's Episcopal Church. Oh, actually, this is Mount Vernon Unitarian Church. This is actually really incredible. They have a whole map of all of the things they're doing, and you can see with the legend on the side, they have solar power, geothermal loops, a geothermal deep well, a frog pond, a nursery rain garden, rain barrels, and they've mapped it all out. And we can share this with you all as well, so you can take a look. And this is the last one. This is St. Mark's Episcopal Church, and this just shows you basically like what you can do. And I'm going to let Renee talk more about this one because she's the one who took the picture here.
Sure thing. Thanks, Christine. Yeah, as I was preparing for this presentation, I was driving around looking at different faith communities and just accidentally came across this one where it was very clear they had no no curbs on their parking lot. This is pretty clearly a bioswale where water can run off and be collected there and filtered through the water. So it was just a really fun property where they had done a couple different things, and we'll see an example later as well. So thank you, Christine, for that tour. We'll dive in here into the Tree of Life, kind of things that you can do in your own faith community. And I wanted to pause here as we look at the sky, because what we're going to do next is going to go really fast through a ton of ideas. There's going to be a lot of them, but use your imagination, just like you would when you watch the clouds passing overhead, and think about how you might be able to envision some of these in your own faith community. Don't feel overwhelmed. The sky is the limit for what you can do, and you can just do as much as you can. There's no too little, no too much. So what the Tree of Life campaign really is focused on more broadly is just creation care, as Andrea said, and how we treat the earth that God created directly affects us as Mother Earth's inhabitants, and it affects all the living things around us as well. So how do our actions harm or help the world? How does the stewardship of our land help address the climate crisis? So with the Tree of Life being part of the Be a Climate Champion campaign, it only feels right to talk about climate first. And if you've read the book Drawdown, it's great. It's a great practical book. It gives you 100 things in rank order that you can do to reverse global warming. And it's all based on research, which is great. So they have a whole section, for example, devoted to land use. And the way we steward our land can capture or release carbon, but it can also help us be more resilient in our landscape to mitigate the effects of the changing climate. And in addition to helping sequester carbon, minimize energy costs and like. So how we steward our land can ensure that we support the biodiversity that we need as humans to survive. So my dog and I were flipping through the chapters and we found that afforestation, which is the practice of adding trees back to the landscape, ranked number 15 out of 100 for climate actions that you can take to draw down carbon emissions. That is really high up. Trees can provide a myriad of co-benefits that are going to contribute to resilience and to the just biodiversity needed to help support the human race. And we'll touch on all of those too. So diving a bit more into land use, the way we've carved up our land affects what can live on our land. This landscape that you see here is great for single family homes, but it's a challenge for many climate and ecological reasons. That reliance on greenhouse gas emitting cars, the increased impervious surface for road infrastructure, loss of habitat, there's just name a few. And so the way we live makes it a challenge for the balance that Mother Nature needs to thrive. Now, in some cases, we do have trees in our own landscape that are sequestering carbon, absorbing stormwater, and that's really good. And while those things are integral to helping to face the current climate crisis, we also really require biodiversity to have human life thrive on this planet. And I want to raise this topic too. We have significantly altered the ecology by what we have planted in our built landscapes. Native trees that evolved here with insect life and animal life, if we don't support the trees that support that life, we can create food deserts like you see here with trees and vegetation from other places. So as we think about what we plant, native plants can provide a home and a holistic ecological approach to ecological restoration. There was a headline recently that 3 billion birds have been lost in North America since 1970. To be fair, they're not lost. They're not here. They can't live. They've died off. And some of those things are due to habitat loss, pesticides and such. But again, we're getting back to how we steward our land. When we go from habitats that look like this to this, we lose pieces of our ecological puzzle. And so I like to use an analogy that the local naturalist Alonso Abogadas explains to talk about our balance. And I think about this like a puzzle, like he does. Have you ever done a puzzle where you've put all the pieces together, but maybe you're missing 5 at the end and your picture is not complete? You've put in all this work, but it's an incomplete picture. It's frustrating. Now imagine if somebody had taken away 50 or 100 of those pieces and replace them with pieces from a different puzzle. You wouldn't even be able to do your puzzle. It'd be incredibly frustrating. So our ecology has been flooded by hundreds of years with non-native plants, puzzle pieces in this analogy, which have not evolved here. And those plants that we put into our ecology don't complete that puzzle. So if we think about it in terms of food and how we operate, imagine walking into a grocery store and finding out that maybe 10% of the food you're looking at is actually edible. The other 90% is all wax. That's exhausting to try to find out which food you can eat and which food you can't eat. So if we think about what's happening to wildlife, we can take birds as an example. Part of the year, it's their job to raise a family, and that entails going to their grocery store. Their grocery store is to find caterpillars, as you can see here. Despite what we think of feeding birds, it's not the birds going to our bird feeders to get seed when they're raising their families. They're looking for soft-bodied insects that they can feed to these little babies. And so they go looking for caterpillars, and Dr. Doug Tallamy tells a story. He's an entomologist out of the University of Delaware. He tells a story about a chickadee, 0.35 ounces. How many caterpillars does it take to raise one chickadee family? Now, they're going to have maybe 4 to 6 babies to raise, could be as high as 10. 390 to 570 caterpillars, depending on the size of their nest, every day to feed that family. That equals over 16 days, about 8,000 caterpillars. That's a lot of caterpillars. And that doesn't count raising their babies past fledging. This is once they're out of the box, they'll need more caterpillars too. So wow, just think about how many caterpillars you need to support the ecosystem for bird life, just that one bird. 8,000 caterpillars. Now think about how many birds we have, and then consider how many caterpillars you might be able to find in a single day. Where do they come from? They come from nature. We need native plants. So Doug Tallamy's book, Bringing Nature Home, talks about which trees support the most caterpillar life. So our native oaks are the best, over 530 species of caterpillars. So one oak tree can be the most incredible bird feeder you've ever seen. And by comparison, ginkgos, which a lot of us are familiar with, they're not from this continent, they only support 4 species of caterpillars. Here, they probably are really great trees where they are on their home continent. And so really, a world without insects is a world without biodiversity. We don't want to break that food chain. We don't have amphibians. The amount of pollinators that we have, a lot of them are specialists. They need those plants to survive. There are over 400 species of native bees, and they're all essential pollinators. P.S. The honeybee is a European species brought here for agriculture, not really a part of our native ecosystem. And while many pollinators also can be generalists, like you see this monarch feeding on different plants, their caterpillars are specialists. So like you won't have monarchs if you don't have milkweed, because their caterpillars rely on that food. Same thing with these fritillaries that you see here. They're not on violets, but that's what their caterpillars only eat. So if you don't have violets, you won't have the fritillaries. And actually 90% of our plant-eating insects are plant specialists. That's an incredible stat. So when our properties look like this, we have drained Mother Nature's ability to support a healthy ecosystem. Nature's balance gets out of whack in these kinds of rich, lawn-rich landscapes. And you might have trees now, but if you don't plan for succession when those trees are lost, that sequestering carbon or providing those other ecosystem services, they're gone when those trees are gone and they haven't been replanted or planned ahead for succession. And we're going to have stronger, more frequent storms. That's what we know from data. That runoff is going to carry pollutants that gets into our drinking water. And that risk is greater when you have a lawn like this as well. In properties like this, we lack the rich support system for the biodiversity, which really fuels life on our planet. So what can you do to help? We have 10 landscaping projects to improve your properties, from easiest to hardest, that you can pull from. And thanks to Plant Nova Natives for these great suggestions. And I'm going to have a lot of links in here as well. We have a PDF to share with you later that has all of these resources that we talk about here, and there are plenty more as well. So the first one you can do is plant a native shade tree. You already heard about the biodiversity benefits, but there are a ton of other benefits of trees as well. And the second best thing you can do besides plant a native tree is to plant several native trees. The benefits of that is that their root systems get interlocked, they actually become more stable, and they become a richer habitat. And we talked about the benefits that trees give. There's so many besides the carbon sequestration. They clean our air, they filter our water, they give life to birds, they're an economy booster. We always know about getting outside and being in nature. They're our own therapists, all of these things here. So many co-benefits in addition to the climate benefits. And the good thing about trees is that there's a lot of grant resources available for tree planting, because we have state mandates that we need to do in order to clean the Chesapeake Bay, and trees are a really big component of helping to clean our water. So because of the mandates we have, there's a lot of resources out there. The Virginia Conservation Assistance Program can help. Your locales might have different programs, and we'll have links that we can share as part of the resources later. And there's this really cool mytree.itools.org that can tell you the benefits of your specific species of tree, depending on if it's out in the open or near a building. Down here, you can see the energy usage in the lower right-hand corner. That is pretty cool. It calculates kind of what economic benefit you're getting out of your tree. So third, use small shrubs and small flowering trees. If you don't want to take on the liability of a big tree, or you're closer to your building, use something smaller. There's lots of great native alternatives. Something you can do too is replace non-native ground covers like English ivy or liriope with things like this, which looks like liriope, but is not. It's a native plant. It's a carex, a sedge. There's also a plant called golden green, golden groundsel. Plant Nova Natives has a ton of resources on their website that you can find alternatives. Lots of plants in the landscape trade have natives that are actually really beautiful and provide better ecology. So there's some non-native columbines, but we've got our own native columbines. Use those. A little bit harder on the scale of things is to do a pollinator garden. These can get complex for maintenance and for working with your landscape crews, which we'll talk about later, but they can also be really, really beautiful. So it does take a little bit more planning ahead, maybe working with a landscape designer to get the best result, but they can be gorgeous. If you have the space, a meadow is amazing. They're a rarer habitat here in Northern Virginia, so they can add a lot of ecological benefit. But again, they take some maintenance to make sure those woody plants, trees don't come back. You can also install conservation landscaping to capture stormwater. Those have to be a little bit more designed. You have to think about the slope, what you want to put there, what kind of plants can thrive in sometimes wet, sometimes drier conditions. But you can also think about this in terms of rain gardens, digging your own, doing it homemade with some plans you can get online, or doing them a bit more professionally designed and engineered depending on the scope that you want to do. That was a whirlwind, but these will all be available for you to explore later on Plant Nova Native's website. And then some other aspects of the Tree of Life campaign, tackling invasive plants. We've already heard about some communities doing that. Plant Nova Trees campaign has a great simplified PDF that you can use to identify vines that can strangle and take down trees. English ivy is that like main culprit that you see so often. And this choking hazard PDF that we'll have the link for you there too. That is a great PDF. They tell you exactly how to save your tree from ivy, making some clips and making a life ring around your tree so that you really protect that base and make sure all the vines have been cleared out. And then the ivy will just die on your tree. You don't have to pull it off. And you can go from having a tree that looks like this to just 10 months later, having it look like that. It's pretty cool. It means that this locust tree can then have a little bit of breathing room to thrive and bring you some beautiful blooms later. Another aspect of the campaign is thinking about composting. So much of our trash, as Andrea touched on before, is our food scraps or things that can be easily composted. We can always put those things in compost bins, use that to renew the soil in our properties. Back at the faith community I had accidentally happened upon, St. Mark's, they had a community garden in the back, which I really love. So community gardening, if you have the space to do it, make your land productive, maybe not only with native plants, but with food production plants like we heard about from some of the other examples. And then one big one is lawn care. So if you have a lawn, you're likely working with a lawn care company and you might have a contract. So there are a bunch of things you can do to update your contract in order to make managing your turf grass more sustainable. And Plant Nova Natives has a sample contract with a bunch of asks that you can add to your contract. That'll be part of the resources you'll get to. But one of the simplest things you can do is just make sure that the grass is cut higher, 3 inches, 4 inches, if you're comfortable with that height. That taller grass means that it's going to have deeper roots, so you don't have to water it as frequently, and it'll be more drought tolerant. And it will also shade out weeds from being able to grow, which is great. So that's one of the keystone tips for having a healthy lawn. A well-established lawn may not actually need fertilizers and weed killers because it's just more healthy being left to grow a little bit longer. So also you want to understand your lawn. You want to test your soils. You want to develop a nutrient plan with a trusted organization. The Master Gardeners have a great resource, which is called Healthy Virginia Lawns. We can drop links for those as well. And you also want to be able to add the proper amount of nutrients back into your soil through mulching or leaves if you can. The ultimate goal is to reduce your fertilizer usage if you can, but if you need to apply it, only apply it when your grass is growing. You don't need to apply it when it's dormant. Otherwise, those nutrients get swept off in the rain and snow, and it goes into our Chesapeake Bay and can cause problems like algae blooms for having too much nutrients. So you also want to make sure that you're never over fertilizing. Remember that more is not better in this case, except for if you wanted to give more profit into the pockets of the product manufacturers, which I don't think we typically want to do. And then lastly, for lawns, Think too about how you can make your lawn areas more spongy. You want them to absorb water that runs off. And sometimes if you use your lawn areas for gatherings, it can get compacted and get harder for not only for grass to grow, but also to allow that water to soak in. So aerate. When you see all those little plugs in the ground and little pieces of soil left behind, that's actually doing something. It's making your lawn spongier. Spring for that extra investment. And then really the best thing you can do for your lawn care is to reduce your amount of lawn and just do something else with it, like the swales, the rain gardens, native plantings. And that is the quick rundown of things you can do on your properties. The one thing I want to say before I hand it off to Joe is that oftentimes, as I mentioned with the lawn care, the people who are taking care of those grounds are your landscaping crew. And so while it might be members of your faith community helping to do some of the things we talked about today, your landscaping company is going to be an integral part of this care. So we talk about this in terms of lawn care, but it really applies more broadly to grounds. And I want to just hand it off to Joe Dumbia, who's going to talk about how FACTS is helping to do that.
Thank you, Renee. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, great. Listen, the most excited piece of the five FACTS strategy elements for me, even though I work on all of them, it is the tree of life. Why the tree of life? Because in addition to the reduction of greenhouse gases that we have to address as part of the climate change, we also need to deal with the biodiversity dimension, which is the conversation that we just had recently. How do we protect, how do we preserve, how do we enhance biodiversity? And all because without biodiversity in all dimensions and levels, we won't be able to make it. It is really how do we care for the biodiversity and how do we connect with it that we are going to make it through. So in addition to all the elements that we are invited you to do, we have also, in another angle, help empower the people who help us make it, this dimension, this change, this transformation. With the Plan Nova Natives, we developed a couple of months ago, well, in March actually, a training for Spanish-speaking landscapers. These are the people who come to our homes, to our gardens, to help us take care of it. The majority of these professionals are Spanish-speaking people, and some of them are only Spanish-speaking people. So as part of helping enhance the tools, the knowledge, and the wisdom of how we make it through, we deliver this training. We have 136 Spanish-speaking experts. They stay with us from 9 to 1 o'clock. And I do think that we sort of plant a good seed going forward. So we have a group of people who are going to be able to help us to advance the agenda in much better condition and ways. And so while all of this is so vital and the investment that we make into these kind of things, because really from my perspective, and I think that is the perspective of many of us, it is that biodiversity, as we talk about the plants, really, and the trees rather, are really the ones who are going to support us. And I can resume this in a very simple statement. I bet that you remember when you were probably in elementary school, when you were told that the trees inhale CO2 and exhale oxygen. And then you go to the other class and they say, yes, we humans, we inhale oxygen and expel CO2. Now that we are in this exercise of saving ourselves, yes, of this crucial challenge that we have, let's put the 2 and 2 together. This is a symbiotic relationship. What the tree exhale is what we breathe. What we breathe is what days hell. So if we have this picture in our mind, when every time or whenever we are conscious of the breath that we are taking, we cannot not see the value and the importance that the tree and biodiversity is for us, and that motivation for us to actively engage on this transformation with all the initiatives and ideas that are being shared here in many other places. Thank you very much.
I'm muted, sorry about that. So now it's time to discuss. And by the way, we are scheduled through the end of the hour, but some of us can stay on longer if the discussion is still going. So we'd love to throw it open for questions, for stories from your faith community, for what you think we should concentrate on. And I throw it open to all of you. And by the way, if you could come on camera, that would give us the ability to interact more. I kind of miss the real world. So any thoughts? Linda.
Well, thank you for mentioning St. Peter's in the Woods. We've been working with our, creation care group since it started in 2019, and we sent you all a list of many of the things that we've done. And recently we did put in a large landscaping area on our hill that's our berm, we call it, that abuts 123, and that included a number of trees as well as native shrubs. We had a landscaper come in. We had a very generous donor in our congregation who worked with our master gardener, naturalist, who is also a member of our congregation, who was able to give us insights into which plants would be beneficial and complementary, and bring in the bees. And you probably read also that we had beehives. We have a gentleman in our church who is a specialist in bees, and just by habit, by hobby. And we sold to our congregation to get money for our giving garden. We sold the honey one year from the bee hives. Unfortunately, we ended up with hive collapse, and we haven't gotten a new swarm of bees to go back in there. But apparently they only and he did a wonderful presentation for us that I would highly recommend having a beekeeper do a presentation for facts, whether it's him or someone else, because there's all kinds of good information. And the bees only traveled 2.5 miles, but they're very directionally challenged. So he said, if you move the hive, 1.5 feet to one side, they won't be able to figure out it's there. So, and so with all the pesticides and other environmental factors, they lose their way getting back to their hive. And then there's other reasons that the hives don't work. I guess they get fungus and stuff. But, we did have a good run there for a couple of years, and it's something that you could do, especially these properties that have more than an acre, or they abut, natural lands. You might be able to have successful beehives on your property, and then have honey, which sort of energizes the congregation. They like that product. So
I wanted to just reflect, Linda mentioned the one pager they put together of all the wonderful things they're doing. And that's one thing for the churches and other faith communities that have been doing really great things, to maybe do something like that so we can share it with everybody. And we're going to be building, like, on our website, places where we can share this kind of information. We're just building up this campaign now, especially now that Christina's joined us. So, and by the way, I want to do a shout out. We have county staff on, Neely and Allison, and we're also working with the Fairfax County staff on all of this. And so I know there's going to be resources coming in various ways via the county. So
another aspiration would be to, get Audubon to give you that certification for having a native, our little plot that was shown with the native plants. We sort of was set up within the parameters of the Audubon certification for wildlife sanctuary, I believe. I mean, or natural plant sanctuary. I don't know the exact name, but yeah, Debbie, who's here, would know the name. But Debbie Switlick, but she may be unavailable to give us. But at any rate, Audubon did certify us as a sanctuary, so that was wonderful. So it gives you another goal to work towards. There's all kinds of small goals that we can all try to reach. That's what
Native sanctuary, certified as a native sanctuary.
Native garden, yeah, native plant sanctuary. It's probably on my piece of paper I have on my phone.
Right.
Suzanne, do you want to share anything about our composting initiatives? Oh, you're muted still. Okay. While Suzanne is figuring that out, does anybody else have any questions or things you want to share? Thoughts on what we should focus on?
Yeah, Andrea, one thing that I want to share for the group that is here, that we have prepared a questionnaire to send to the congregations, and we are trying to, on the idea of trying to fill that profile of the different organizations. We are sending this questionnaire to the different congregations, and so we look forward, getting also information on that.
And by the way, FACS is on the board of FACS. Joe is on the board of FACS. And so that's part of our initiatives. And especially some of you who have done a lot, it'd be really great if we could fill out that survey with Joe.
I got my mute resolved. Hi, hello. Technology is one of the challenges of this, but my name is Suzanne O'Leary, and I have spent a little over a year now trying to better understand the options for composting in the Northern Virginia area, including using a composting company and having them pick up at your church, at your home, those kinds of things. Also, the different kinds of composting you can encourage people to either do on your grounds if you have that option, or even at home. So if someone thinks that their congregation would like to hear more about composting or your green team, I would be happy to share with you what I know is going on, and so that you can be making decisions that make that easier for you to do.
And again, you can let us know that in chat, or you can write us at info@faithforclimate.org, or call us. Any number of ways to let us know, and we will follow up with you. I think Betty, you were about to say something.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I just want to say this is a fantastic presentation, very inspirational. So thank you very much. I think that the fact of just providing tools and all that you're doing to communicate this to different churches and temples and other faith communities is fantastic. And I liked seeing in the chat, somebody had gotten a grant for getting trees. So I think whatever you can do to get that, spread best practices. I personally am not involved with the things they've done on the gardens at Road of Shalom, but I know it's fantastic, the things that they've been working on. And so I think to the extent that you guys could share best practices so that people jumping in along the way will be able to see tools or ideas that somebody else has done, it seems like that will be very helpful to them. So thank you very much. This is a great presentation.
Thank you, Betty.
And I'll jump in to say Plant Nova Natives is just my absolute favorite resource. Their website is really overwhelming. They have so much information, but take your time and go through each menu. And they really do collect all those best practices of things that have worked. And so if you can't find it there, definitely let FACS know.
Lisa, I saw your hand up.
Yes, I unmuted myself. I have been involved with the Land Care Committee at Temple Rodef Shalom. So I also want to join Betty in thanking you for having this program. And this is a multi-year initiative that we started last year. We had a sustainability meeting with just a lot of brainstorming from a lot of people from different areas of the congregation to figure out how we could be more environmentally responsible across a lot of different categories. And then people chose which category they wanted to join. And so I joined the Land Care group. And we had a multi-year proposal that we presented to the board that we've accomplished some of, but that we're in it for the long term. So we've replanted a lot of the gardens. We have ongoing plans to sustain our trees, to sustain other gardens, and as the presentation showed, work with native gardens that work with land that is next to us so that we can make sure that we remove invasives. And along those lines, I think a lot of us have learned a lot about working with county resources as far as finding master invasive removal people. I can't remember exactly what the title is, but that was kind of the category that we were looking at. We were very happy to find that there were a lot of resources in the county that could help us as well. And then building along the planting Nova natives, just finding master gardeners or people who are affiliated with master gardeners who are very familiar with native plants, so that we can do this in our congregation. We can also educate the congregants about it and just kind of pass on that love and respect for nature and establishing natives in the community. It's been a really great program.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wanted to share something from my community. I go to a very conservative Lutheran church, and I've noticed my pastor every single Sunday is praying about nature. And it's so cool. I mean, I wait for that in the prayer every week to hear what he's going to say. And I think educating and bringing our fellow congregants in through prayer or educational programs, or like I love the picture from Temple Rodef Shalom of the little kids at the community garden. There's so much we can do beyond just the faith community grounds to work with all the people who come to the houses of worship. So I think this is a really rich area. And by the way, we're going to be doing follow-up webinars and, looking for funding sources and sharing that. And there's already going to be a lot in the PDF that, have we shared that, by the way, in the chat? Okay. Because we really want to take things to the next level. And also I'm really interested in how can we there's over 500 faith communities in Fairfax County alone. And how can we engage more faith communities in this kind of work? And I think this particular campaign is really easy to grasp. Like it's, sometimes solar and things like that are a little esoteric to a lot of people, but we all understand soil and trees. And, I think this is a good way to engage maybe the churches and synagogues and Islamic centers that aren't working on this yet. So if anybody has any thoughts on that, like kind of a ministry, I'm thinking, like I love what Temple Rodef Shalom is doing as far as kind of going outside of your border and working on invasive species removal in the community.
I think Joan wanted to say something.
Yeah,
yes.
thank you. I'm Joan Gillard. I'm with the Trinity Presbyterian Church in Herndon, and we've had an Earth Care team for, we're going into our third year now, and we just recently were recertified through the Presbytery that has an Earth Care certification program. So we're happy about that. But we've built a composter, and we have a Browns bin next to it. We have a community garden, and we want to plant. Property committee just came to me recently, and they want to get more people in the church involved in taking responsibility for sections of the landscaping to plant native pollinators, perennials. I'm just wondering if anybody has any pearls of wisdom, or is that on the website somewhere as far as successfully getting people in the church excited and willing to really put themselves into this.
Interesting. Probably if you have the space, when you have the community coming to the social event or a different activity, I think that we can probably go and talk to the community, make the presentation, indicate, the benefits, the value, the beauty behind all of these kind of things to help inspire them. And along with that, help to make the connections. For instance, the Audubon at Home, they have ambassadors and they come and they help developing or identifying when the garden it is ready to go to the next step or on the creation of a garden. So we can help make connections on those lines to start, motivating the congregation, getting involved in this activity. Then it is not only for your grounds only, but people who are there, they have that, motivation to go and do it and replicate it in their homes as well. So great initiative. So we can probably help you on that fashion.
Thank you.
Got a question?
Right.
Okay. You were talking about CCAP at the beginning. Can you tell me what it stands for?
Oh, yeah, it's Community-Wide Energy and Climate Action Plan. So it's basically the county's climate action plan.
Okay. So that's Fairfax County?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we as a kind of group, we're a sector of the county that the county chose to do a pilot. And so we're going to model for the rest of Fairfax County what could be done to take climate action. Does that make sense?
So you personally are not representing FACTS, you're representing Fairfax County.
No, I'm the executive director of FACTS.
Oh, okay.
I'm with the Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, and we're partnering with the county. And there's a couple, I don't know if the county staff want to wave your hands.
So the
sorry.
county came to FACTS and said, we're going in the same direction, let's go together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And let's inspire the rest of the community to step up. Like, for instance, I just think a lot of business leaders go to houses of worship every month. So if we're doing, or every week, if we're doing this, maybe we'll inspire them to do it on their business grounds.
Okay.
So,
And then one more thing, we've been working since about 2015 on our property, and we've done a whole list of different things. One of the things we're doing is we're trying to rehabilitate the edge of a forest. So we're planting trees and we're getting people to sponsor the trees, to give them that they can go along and say, that tree has got my name under it, to tie them in. So there's partly that and partly that they give us money. So that's a big help. And then since we're all from Fairfax County, we're having an Earth Day event. This is Church of the Holy Comforter in Vienna on Saturday morning of Earth Day, April 22nd. So if any of you are not engaged in your own Earth Day events, do come and join us.
wonderful.
That is a good plot, Margaret, for the Earth Day. I think that, just having this conversation now, I think that is an invitation for us in, the best of our abilities, either in our congregations or our personal level, sort of to honor this day on the activities. I think that there is so much to be done. And I tell you, for us, in fact, it will be absolutely great to have the benefit of portraying some of the through pictures or videos that you share with us on all the activities that the congregations that are associated with us, are doing or did to celebrate, that one important day. So, good plug, Margaret. Thank you for it.
Yeah, Linda.
Yeah, there was somebody who was asking about, native garden development and sanctuary. And when we did it, we actually got a grant from the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation Department, or, I think they gave us $2,000, and we went ahead and had to do a proposal, and I believe we had to get started with our garden, but then they reimbursed us. So whoever was talking about wanting to do that garden, they may be able to get some grants for some of the purchases of those plants. But they can get in touch with St. Peter's in the Woods Creation Care folks and myself or our president or our committee leader, Debbie, to explain how we did it, if you'd like.
That's a great call out. And I'll also say that as part of that grant, you can use volunteer time as some of your match, which means that you can actually get a lot more money if you put in a lot of sweat equity, and really your match doesn't have to be cash. It can be man and woman and people power. So
I'm not sure we knew that.
yeah, I learned that through my second grant. My first grant, I did not know that. And it's a great tip that the more people you have them log all their hours, you get credited at the volunteer rate, which is somewhere in the $25 range per hour. So that's great.
And by the way, you all are modeling right now this kind of sharing of information. And, you know, like if facts comes forward, hopefully we're trusted and hopefully the county is trusted, but faith communities talking with each other and sharing like what worked for you, I think is going to be the most powerful part of this campaign. So that's part of what I'm hoping we can somehow figure out, like those of you who have done this great stuff, like how can we bottle that up and give it to everybody else? Not bottle it up. That's a bad, non-sustainable analogy. How can we let it rain on other?
In reusable glass bottles.
Any other thoughts, questions?
Well, I think each individual house of worship is just one little piece and it feels small. But when you get together 190 strong or however many members you have now, and you start, you know, multiplying what each of us are doing to help with the bird population or the bee population. You know, we have a woman in our group, a Stacy Remick Simpkins, and she is very knowledgeable and probably credentialed. I don't know what her credentials are exactly, but she's, you know, she's constantly doing bird counts, and she does them for the county, and I think there's a whole network of people who do that. So, you know, it all becomes part of a snowball that gets bigger and bigger. And it seems small to do just this amount in your own congregation, but it's sort of going to be like the solar sanctuaries. I mean, we have all these churches along 123, and I've got this plan, you know, that maybe we can get all of them to buy in somehow with solar sanctuary, you know, with solar, and then somehow, you know, work together, because they're all lined up right there on 123. But I don't know if that'll happen, but it's a dream.
Imagine all those butterflies and birds flying along there. Lots of food to eat.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if I missed this, but do we also, is there any way to advertise landscapers who use electric equipment? Because that seems like that also is a huge polluter. And anyway, that maybe that's part of the contract that Renee was talking about.
I like that.
There are very few people who actually use rechargeable electric things, because they can only do a very small area until the power runs down. So there's one that I think is called Littlefoot, and it has an image of a dinosaur, and I'm not sure why. And they have a waiting list of people who want them. So we hope that if other companies can see that there's a waiting list, they can join in. The Littlefoot people are kind of the most extreme. They have solar panels on the roof of their van. So they're charging the battery that they use. So that's why. And then Plant Nova Natives, I'm pretty sure, have got a list of landscapers, because there's sort of a whole continuum of people. And then one of the problems that you run into is that there are people who will do good lawn care, but they don't do the rest of the landscaping.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll do the soil tests, and they'll do the feeding and all that good stuff. But then you've got to get another company who's going to come in and do the other stuff. So it's difficult, and this is what I hope, if we share things, that if somebody comes across a company that we can all say, oh, good, we'll go to them, but they're difficult to find.
Nova Natives has a list of landscapers that are sort of recognized for the knowledge on the handling of native plants. And the idea of the landscapers and professionals that use the electric equipment, it is just building up. There are few names, couple of names here and there, but it's just building up because, even themselves, they are beginning to learn that there is a market for it, that they can afford the investment of, completely changing their equipment on that position. But I think that the more demand that it comes, the easier it is to be for them as well. Yeah, that list, it is much more skinnier, if you will, all because that's a newer dimension, yes, but it's gradually building also.
Yeah. Building markets for good sustainable land use. Yeah, I love it. All right. Well, we are definitely past the hour, so I don't want to cut anybody off if I didn't see any hands. Oh, one more hand. Okay, Linda.
Just one more thing. Is there any green bank? I know there was somebody who spoke up that Fairfax is going to have a green bank. Is there going to be any money in this kind of stuff, or is it bigger stuff?
I think so. And I actually want to give you a really hopeful thing I used to work up on Capitol Hill when they were debating the Inflation Reduction Act and things like that. And I actually once heard a group of Senate staffers for the Republicans talking about invasive species being one of their top priorities, dealing with invasive species. So this feels like, an area where there's a lot of interest from across the political spectrum to support, doing the right thing. And even if it's not, and I don't know what's in this bill for this particular campaign, though I've been told by federal agency people that all of the campaigns that we've dreamed up, that there's going to be funding for it. So I'm going to trust that. We haven't seen all the funding come out yet, but if it's not in this one, I'm sure it's going to be coming, just because of some of the conversations I've heard. And then of course there's funding already from the state and different, the Chesapeake Bay restoration. There's all kinds of little pots of money for people that Renee knows much more about than I do.
Linda,
and
were
the
you
county staff knows about a lot too.
Linda, were you asking specifically about the establishment of a green bank as an organization, nonprofit within Fairfax?
When I went to the kickoff meeting for
Right.
FACTS, there was a speaker who talked about the Montgomery County Green Bank. And then someone got up from Fairfax and said, we are developing one also, but it was
Right.
going to have a different name. So that I was wondering if there was going to be local monies, green bank monies that might work toward this particular,
Yeah.
five trees, whatever. That was the question.
Right. Allison just put in the chat and the which just gives a synopsis in terms of the legislative authority under which green banks may be established in Virginia, which may limit its scope for the type of work that would be funded.
Oh,
Yeah. So will anybody be, or any money be available for Tree of Life kind of stuff? We don't know that, right?
Allison's comment was that is for emissions reduction, so renewable energy and energy efficiency. How broadly that may be interpreted, I would say green infrastructure would be on that broader definition. However, I think what the county is looking to promote, whether it's local sources of funding, state or federal, that there is some available resources, no matter what your type of project is, or what type, what size, or what type for projects. So there will be funding else available, and we'll be updating our website and resources as well.
And just to add on to that, one of the recommendations that we made to our Board of Supervisors was advocating for an expansion of the way the legislation is currently written at the state level to be broader, to include more categories of both climate mitigation and climate resilience projects that could fall under what qualifies for green bank funding.
This really dovetails nicely into what Andrea mentioned early, which we're looking for advocates who are willing to talk to elected officials. And I actually just got an email today from one of our partners with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation talking about how we've been remiss at having residents talk to their elected officials about the importance of trees and natural resources. And because of this, we're missing opportunities like this and others to really have that kind of state level legislation have that kind of focus. So this is very likely going to be something that we'll focus on in the coming year at the state level as well. So if you're interested in that, drop your name in the chat box, get in touch with FACTS, and I'll be partnering with Andrea to help get people, powered up for that.
Educated.
And please do come back. We're doing these monthly meetings, right? So, and in the end, for me, this is just my personal, I'm all about nature and everything I do on climate. Like for me, I always have the fellow critters that I live on this planet with in my heart. And like everything we're doing in these campaigns in the end is going to help nature, hopefully. Hopefully we'll make the right decision. Sometimes I wonder about some of our technology stuff, but anyway, I hope you'll come back. And again, I really think Tree of Life is an entry point for a lot of people. And then we can teach them more about some of the other, maybe not less exciting things like insulation. So thank you for coming today. Is there any, I don't want to cut anybody off. Any last thoughts? All right. Well, thank you for coming today. Please stay engaged, and together we're going to create a lot of food for caterpillars. Thank you, Renee.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda. Thanks for your inspirational work.
Little by little, we get it done, right? Just like the caterpillars, they just move slow.
That's right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay,